son. Where'd you find this?
Just do it! Make your dreams come true!
A few moments later.
You are now listening to Podcast 42, the world's most popular, inaccurate, and sometimes squirreled retelling of pop culture history.
Hi.
John Mahoney was the dad on Say Anything.
Oh, see, I didn't watch that. I haven't seen that. But that shouldn't surprise you.
It's a John Cusack movie.
Yeah, it's a realistic movie.
Ah, yeah.
That's one where he held up the
boombox
box at the end. Yes.
You know what I just watched for the first time? I don't know if I told you this last week. The Truman Show.
What did you think?
I thought it was very good.
It was okay.
I thought it's creepy, but it was definitely a thinker, and I liked it.
Well, speaking of Truman Show, it's time for Podcast 42.
Yay!
I'm Christopher DeVos.
I'm Nicole Fasone.
And I'm Gary Winograd.
Yay.
Filling in for JL and James.
Yep. It's a 3-part today.
So you're going to have to do like 2 different voices.
I'm going to do upstate Buffalo and my English accent.
Do you want to plug the popcorn store?
Yes, I own the popcorn place in Hunters Creek with over 100 different flavors of popcorn. So you can pop on in at any time and try any of our samples of any of our great flavors.
Pop on in.
Yeah, is that something popcorn store owners have to say?
That's dad joke for popcorn store, yes.
Actually, we had some of your rainbow popcorn yesterday. It was very good.
I know James tends to desire the rainbow popcorn, which might be subliminal, and Chris likes the hot wings, which, of course, if I hadn't been dealing with a crazy wife and daughter today, I probably would have remembered to bring some with me.
I like the hot
The
wing
Girl Scout cookies, too.
mixed in with the ranch.
Ooh.
Hot wings and ranch, yes.
That sounds good. I got to try that one.
It's really good. Eat a whole
Cool.
gigantic bag in one sitting, and then I burp all day. Mm-hmm. So you filled JL's beer cooler today. What'd you bring?
JL's beer cooler, it's cooler than you think. JL's beer cooler, it's cool enough to drink. It's cool enough to drink, yeah.
So I figured since I was driving out to way out to the suburbs out here, I would go local with a McSwagger's own amber ale from Crooked Can Brewery, which is here in Winter Garden, Florida. It is an amber ale at 6%.
It's very good. I've had it before. I love Crooked Can. They've got this nice food market attached to it, so you can go there and have a couple of drinks and have a bunch of different food between people. So it's a nice local spot if you're ever in town in Winter Garden, Florida.
I'm a little disappointed that the can is not actually crooked.
Ha! You're so funny.
Hold on.
No, I'm serious.
There you go. It's crooked now.
They should make it in a crooked can. That would be awesome. Hello, marketing.
So there's a shot glass. I have a shot glass collection. I have like almost 150 shot glasses, and I have one that says I got tipsy in Florida, and I'm sure it's generic. The original one that I got was Niagara Falls, but it broke, and I was very heartbroken. But it's funny because, it's tipsy, and the shot glass is actually tilted, so it's like, it's
See,
funny.
somebody else did it.
Yeah.
So crooked can, you're welcome.
Well, there's one of the restaurants where we worked where they actually served, or they at one point they had glasses that leaned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah.
And so every time you drank it, it looked like it was going to tip over, but it was just on an angle. So they could actually do the can like that, also almost sort of on a slight angle.
It's a good idea.
It is. And see, I was hoping this week, because, I always go for the label and the flavor, and I always get one or the other with Chris, so we'll be interested to see what you think later on.
Yep, we'll review that at the end, but right now, we're going to talk about Nicole's pick this week.
Yes, and this is just for my mom because I knew she'd love it, and there's a very special reason why Gary is here. We are talking about Mel Brooks and his amazing career that he's had.
And Gary, you met Mel Brooks.
I did get to meet Mel Brooks. He is one of my idols and one of my man crushes. In fact, one of the people that I worked with at one point, when I put my picture with Mel Brooks on my Facebook page, this person asked everyone we work with, is Gary gay? Because he's with his sugar daddy on his Facebook page. Who is that guy with? And everyone at work said, that's Mel Brooks.
Is this the one where you kind of snuck into the... Wasn't he, like, speaking on stage, but then there was, like, a private session, and didn't you kind of...
I hate to admit it, but I actually owe JL one on this one, because I did not... It was over in Tampa. I did not know he was in town, and JL said, oh, yeah, you should go over. So I was like, I got off of work one night, and I got a wild hair up my ass, and I said, okay, I'm driving to Tampa after work. Drove over, had no tickets, waited outside with all the stalkers to see if I could at least, get a picture with him or get him to sign something. And they literally drove in his limo. They brought the thing down and said, nope, he's not coming out. So I ran around to the front and said, what tickets do you have? And bought a ticket. And I got second row.
Wow.
Right on the stage. They were showing Blazing Saddles. Then they had a question and answer type of a thing, and with him telling stories afterwards. And after the movie was over and after he finished talking, I was so excited that I was like literally jumping in my seat like a kid at Christmas. And the guy in front of me and his girlfriend turned around and they were like, oh yeah, we were talking about it. And he goes, oh, he looks at me and goes, you want to meet him? I like... yeah. How? Seriously? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm actually I am the manager of the theater. He goes, just stand over there with her, and I'll just bring you in afterwards. And we got to go backstage, and we waited for, it was about 40 minutes we had to wait around. And the worst part was I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I'm not missing this. And
you should have told him. I'm sure he would have made an awesome joke about it.
Yeah, and I was like, so I'm in the back, and we're waiting in line, and somehow or other I got to be I was about 9th or 10th person in line to meet him. The guy just brought me back, and everyone else paid like $200, and he and his girlfriend were there, and he's meeting all these people and taking the pictures, and I hear him go, what, don't you have anybody short back there? All these people, they're way taller than I am. And he's behind a screen as you went around to do it. And so when it was my turn, I got on my knees and walked out on my knees. And he looks at me like I'm insane. I said, what, you said you wanted somebody shorter than you were? And he looks at me and goes, don't be funnier than the comedian. But he was...
Special moment.
At 91 years old, he was absolutely sharp as a tack and amazing and told great stories.
91, really?
Actually, he's older than that now.
Yeah, 1926 it says.
Okay.
I think he was 91 when I met him, so I think isn't he like 92 or 93 now?
Oh, wow.
That's
All
crazy.
Right. Well, I guess we got to get into it then.
Let's get into it.
All right, so Mel Brooks was born Melvin Kaminsky on June 28th, 1926 in Brooklyn, New York City. That's where I'm from. Ha, see? All the history. His father was Max Kaminsky, and his mother was Kate Brookman Kaminsky. Mel would spend most of his childhood in Williamsburg, which is another area in Brooklyn. His father's family were German Jews from Danzig, which is now present-day...
I don't know.
Gdansk,
Poland. His mother's family were Jews from Kiev in the Pale of Settlement of the Russian Empire, which is now present-day Ukraine. Mel had 3 older brothers, Irving, Lenny, and Bernie. Brooks's father would die of kidney disease when Mel was only 2 years old, so he really doesn't have a father figure in his life. Well, maybe. I'm just assuming. Brooks said of his father's death, there is an outrage there. I may be angry at God or at the world for that. And I'm sure a lot of my comedy is based on anger and hostility. Growing up in Williamsburg, I learned to clothe it in comedy to spare myself problems, like a punch in the face.
So, yes, you're correct. There's no father figure.
No father figure.
No. So Brooks was small and often bullied and teased by his classmates because of his size. He grew up in a tenement building, and at the age of 9, Brooks went on to a Broadway show with his Uncle Joe, and Uncle Joe was a taxi driver who would sometimes drive the Broadway doorman back to Brooklyn for free and was often given tickets as a thank you. The show was Anything Goes with William Gaxon, Ethel Merman, and Victor Moore at the Alvin Theater.
It's a good show, by the way.
Anything Goes?
I don't know it.
Cole Porter, right?
I don't remember. I just know my cousin starred in it, and she was the lead. It was very good.
Yeah. After the show, Brooks told his uncle that he was not going to work in factories, drive a cab, or rent bicycles, but instead he was going to go into show business, saying that he was going to write things that came from his heart and soul. And Brooks said, being bizarre looking and rather short which I can relate to half of that. I needed another tool so that I would be accepted, so I used comedy. I had no idea that it would lead to a living of any kind.
Don Appel was an actor and a director who Brooks would hang out with and try to make laugh by telling jokes and doing impressions. Appel thought Brooks had something, so he called someone at the Butler Lodge and asked if they wouldn't mind giving him a shot. They put him in a play called Uncle Harry, where 15-year-old Brooks had to play a 50-year-old man. That had to be interesting casting.
It's high school type.
No, this is like a resort.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is probably out in the Catskills or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a dinner theater or something. They gave him a wig and a beard. Brooks was really nervous. He had a line where he said, "Why don't you have a little water?" But when he said it, he dropped the glass and it shattered and water went everywhere. So Brooks ran to the front of the stage, tore off his beard, and yelled, "I'm 15! I've never done this before!" The audience busted out laughing. Even though the director was really upset, it was through this experience that Brooks discovered that he wanted to do comedy. He turned to drumming for a short time, saying, "Drums made the most noise and got me the most attention. I could have played the trumpet, but everyone stops to listen to the drummer."
Fair. And drumming is hard. Keeping rhythm is incredibly difficult.
Not when
Especially
you
for
have
us Jewish people.
Not when you have the talent for it.
Huh?
Not when you have like the in your blood to do it.
Of course, but it's very difficult.
And how many times can you play Hava Nagil on the drums?
This is going to be a lot of Jewish jokes, isn't it?
A lot. Brooks first went to Abraham Lincoln High School for a year and then moved to Eastern District High School where he would finish. A year into Brooklyn College as a psychology major found Brooks being drafted into the Army in 1944. He went to the Army Specialized Training Program conducted at the Virginia Military Institute and served in the United States Army as a corporal in the 1104 Engineer Combat Battalion, 78th Infantry Division, defusing landmines during World War II. Brooks tells a story of his Army experience where one night he heard the Germans singing something in their native language. They were just a few miles away across the river, so Brooks picked up a bullhorn and starts singing, "Toot toot tootsie goodbye," to which the Germans clapped and cheered. Brooks says he could have ended the war, but Patton wanted to keep going.
And that's a real story he told, and my God, that's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Especially as a Jew fighting in the war against
yes.
Nazis in 1944.
Diffusing bombs and singing "Toot toot tootsie goodbye."
Yes. Oh, I would be hiding in a bush. I would fight all my wars from inside a bush.
That would help you. Not at all.
No, okay.
After the war, Brooks started working in various Borscht Belt resorts and nightclubs as a drummer and pianist. Borscht Belt, which was also known as the Jewish Alps, is a nickname for the summer resorts of the Catskill Mountains in part of Sullivan, Orange, and Ulster counties in New York. They're mostly defunct today, but borscht is a soup associated with immigrants from Eastern Europe. These resorts were a super popular vacation spot for New York City Jews between the 1920s and the 70s, and most Borscht Belt resorts featured Jewish comedians and musicians. And many who later became famous began their careers there. To name a few, Woody Allen, Rodney Dangerfield, Jerry Seinfeld, Henny Youngman, Sid Caesar, Billy Crystal, Buddy Hackett, Gabe Kaplan, Andy Kaufman, and Joan Rivers.
A couple of those names sound familiar.
They should all sound familiar to you. All those names are super duper famous. Were you being sarcastic?
I've heard of
Who's Gabe? The other one I'll give you a pass on is Gabe Kaplan.
Okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know for sure. I'm sure you could guess which ones.
Who don't you know?
Henny Youngman.
Rodney Danger. I mean, I've heard of Rodney Dangerfield. What? I don't know Rodney Dangerfield.
No, yeah, you do.
I don't. I've heard of Woody Allen, but I don't really know.
Respect. I went to Burger King. They told me I don't deserve a break today.
The ones that I know for sure, like, know them and have seen them, are Jerry Seinfeld, Billy Crystal, and Joan Rivers. Like, sorry to disappoint. I'm the worst. Right. You know that already.
Henny Youngman, Take My Wife, Please.
Okay.
Played the violin.
Gabe Kaplan was from Welcome Back, Carter. So that was before your time. That was a TV show before your time. You get a pass on that one.
Hold on. Sid Caesar, she does not, because you must have seen Grease.
I did see Grease. Who is he?
He was the gym teacher.
Okay. So, but that doesn't mean I know him.
And you've heard of Woody Allen.
I've heard of Woody Allen.
Okay, that should count as you know Woody Allen.
Okay, that's why I said 4, and then I said the 3 that I definitely know and have seen.
Buddy Hackett was brilliant, but I'll give her a pass on that one.
Yeah, you get a pass on Buddy Hackett.
He was brilliant. And Andy Kaufman, did you ever watch Taxi?
No.
Old Saturday Night
Talking
Live.
about living under a bush.
No.
No?
Okay. You can have pass on Andy Kaufman. Jim Carrey played Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon. Did you see that movie?
No.
No? Okay. But you saw the documentary,
No,
right?
James did.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
watch it.
All right. Okay. Mind blown again.
Moving forward.
It was around this time that he changed his professional name to Mel Brooks, taken from his mother's maiden name, Brookman. This was after being confused with the Borscht Belt trumpet player Max Kaminsky. That is hilarious that there's more than one Kaminsky in my mind. Maybe not in your guys' mind, but in my mind that seems funny. I stand alone. One night, one of his regular comics got too sick to perform, so Brooks filled in. The bug bit him, and he started working as a stand-up comic, telling jokes and doing movie star impersonations. Brooks also began...
Impersonations.
Yeah.
It says impressions.
Oh, well, that's the same thing.
I know. There's just
They're interchangeable.
Okay.
It's the English language.
Okay.
It's a synonym.
Words mean more than one thing sometimes. And you can interject words with other words. Getting back on the train. Or railroad or
Subway.
Amtrak or Subway.
No, not Amtrak.
Yeah.
Not these days.
Trolley car.
Don't
Yeah.
take Amtrak.
All mean the same thing. Brooks also began acting in summer stock in Red Bank, New Jersey, and also some radio gigs. Eventually, he was able to work his way up to the comedically aggressive job of Tumblr, which is a Yiddish word meaning master entertainer at Grossingers.
Grossingers. Oh my gosh.
Singers.
And this is what the goyim comes out.
What does that mean?
Goyim, non-Jewish male.
I thought a goyim was like a big thing on your neck
No.
that you had to pinch.
That's a
That's
goy.
a goiter.
Oh, a goiter.
And a golem is a big thing that just walks around made out of clay.
I thought
Gollum was looking for the ring.
Looking for the ring.
His precious. Anyway, it was one of Borscht Belt's most famous resorts with the hardest name to say. It's no longer there because no one could say the name. It closed its doors in 1986.
Grossingers is no longer there, is what he means to say.
Yes, because no one could say the name.
We can say the name. You can't say
No
the name.
one can say the name.
Grossingers.
I don't even think that's right. No one can say the name.
It is. Brooks also liked to work behind the scenes, becoming a comedy writer for television. In 1949, his friend Sid Caeser hired Brooks to write jokes for the NBC series The Admiral Broadway Review. This earned him a paycheck of $50 a week. Admiral Broadway Review was a live television variety show that ran from January 28, 1949 to June 3, 1949. The show aired on Fridays from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern, simultaneously on both the NBC and the Dumont networks. It was hosted by Sid Caeser and also starred Imogen Coca. Is that
Imogene.
I'm sorry, Imogen Coca.
It was Grossinger's Coca.
Uh-huh. Admiral was a TV set manufacturer. Brooks says lovingly of Sid Caeser, he was so good that he was a vehicle for love and passion for comedy. That son of a bitch held me back because of his enormous talent. He held me back for about 8 or 9 years where I could have been out front doing it, but never as funny or as moving as Sid Caeser.
I can't imagine doing TV back in that time because every show was live.
Yeah.
That'd be nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and they all, they had to do things off the cup.
Yeah.
You know, like if something went wrong, they just ad-libbed their way through it.
The true start of improv.
And if I'm not mistaken, Imogen Coca is Sid Caesar's wife, isn't it?
I don't know.
No idea.
Then in 1950, Caesar created the revolutionary variety comedy series Your Show of Shows and hired Brooks as a writer along with Carl Reiner, Neil Simon, Danny Simon, and head writer Mel Tolkien. The show was a huge hit and the predecessor to what we know as variety and sketch comedy shows today. It was live and 90 minutes long and also starred Sid Caesar and Imogen Coca. Neil Simon says of Brooks, Mel had such gall. He would be running around the room and yell at the guys that that stinks and that this is dreadful. He would drive some of us crazy.
You sounded just like Neil Simon.
I did my best. Now, do you recognize any of those names?
Nope.
You should only recognize one, I think.
What, Neil Simon?
Yeah.
I recognize the name.
Carl Reiner.
No, that's not. No. Neil Simon sounds familiar, but I don't know who he is or what he did or...
He wrote a bunch of plays.
Sure.
Little things like The Odd Couple,
Okay.
Plaza Suite.
Okay.
Yep.
Producer Max Lieberman was not thrilled to have Brooks around and thought he was arrogant and obnoxious and thought he knew everything. Lieberman once threw a lit cigar at Brooks after he slid across the floor of dance rehearsals and yelled, "Safe!" Your shows ended in 1954 when Imogene Coca left to host her own show, which is oddly enough named The Imogene Coca Show. I don't know where they came up with that name. They're really stretching on that one. Caesar then starred in Caesar's Hour with most of the same cast and writers, including Brooks, and adding Larry Gelbart. After Caesar's Hour came Sid Invites You, which ended when Lawrence Welk would start beating them in the ratings, which is crazy. I thought people just slept during that show.
Yeah. I didn't know Lawrence Welk would outdo Sid Caesar.
Yeah. Well, that was his third incarnation of a show.
Yeah. Now, what, Imogene Coca, I know where you got. Have you seen National Lampoon's Vacation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you seen National Lampoon's Vacation?
No.
When they go to Wally World?
No.
Is she the grandma?
She was the aunt who dies in the car.
Aunt. Yeah.
Yeah, that they strapped to the top of the car.
Cool, I did not know that. Brooks and Carl Reiner became fast friends and would often improvise comedy routines when they had time off. Reiner would usually play the straight man who would set up Brooks as anything from a Tiberian monk to an astronaut.
Or even a Tibetan monk.
Yeah, Tibetan, Tiberian. In Ohio, we call him Tiberian. Reiner said, "In the evening, we go to a party and I pick a character for him to play. I never told him what it was going to be."
One time, Reiner suggested a 2,000-year-old man who had witnessed the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. He would be the type who would come into a store but never bought anything and just asked for water and brought 12 guys with him. The 2,000-year-old man had been married several hundred times and had over 42,000 children, and not one ever came to visit him. Brooks and Reiner at first would only perform the routine for friends, but by the late 1950s, it had gained a cult status around New York City. Kenneth Tynan? Yeah?
Some guy.
Okay. Kenneth Tynan, a theater critic, saw the comedy duo perform it at a party and wrote that Brooks, quote, was the most original comic improviser I had ever seen. Rob Reiner, Carl's son, stated that his dad could put Mel in such an uncomfortable positions that Mel would really have to work at it to pull the comedy out. He thought Mel was at his best with Carl Reiner.
Which I would wholly agree with, because the two of them, they were sort of like, let's see, who likes to bug
Sid
each
and
other,
Nancy.
make everyone uncomfortable, jail, and who?
Everybody.
So he brings out the best and the worst. But I mean, have you ever heard the 2,000-year-old man?
You know, I have not. I know of it, but I've never listened to any of it.
If you can ever find it, either on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, the bit, it's almost as classic as the Abbott and Costello Who's on First routine, and probably funnier.
I saw, doing research for this, I saw a small clip of it. It was funny.
You have to let it build. Like, if you just listen to bits and pieces, you miss. But when you go through the whole thing, it's sort of like the old Carol Burnett, when they would pull out such crazy crap that everyone else on the stage would have to fight to not laugh.
Yeah.
That you can hear that in the 2,000-year-old man when Mel Brooks starts going off. In 1960, Brooks moved to Hollywood, and Brooks and Reiner began performing the 2,000-year-old man act on the Steve Allen Show. That led to the release of a comedy album, 2,000 Years, with Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. It sold over 1 million copies in 1961, and they would go on to make 2 more albums in 61 and 62, then a revival in 73, and a 75 animated TV special, and finally a reunion album in 1998. At one point, Mel Brooks had some financial and career struggles, and the record sales from the 2,000-year-old man helped keep him afloat.
That's literal. He was in the water, and he had to strap all those albums together after he stopped selling.
He made a raft out of them. You know, because back then the albums had the little holes in the middle. You could just strap them all together.
Yeah. So that's what that meant, for those who didn't understand.
Brooks reinvented the 2,000-year-old man character to create the 2,500-year-old brewmaster for Ballantine beer in the 1960s. Interviewed by Dick Cavett in a series of ads, the brewmaster, who had a thick German accent as opposed to 2,000-year-old man's Yiddish accent, said he was inside the original Trojan horse and could have used a six-pack for fresh air. In 1962, Brooks wrote the Broadway musical All-American. Lee Adams supplied the lyrics, and Charles Strauss composed the music. The show starred Ray Bolger as a Southern science professor at a large university who applies the principles of engineering on the college football team, and the team begins to win games. The show was directed by Joshua Logan, who doctored the script in the second act, adding a gay subtext to the plot. The show ran for 80 performances and received 2 Tony Award nominations. Now, who knows who Ray Bolger is?
Not it.
No, I don't know.
He was the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz.
Oh, okay.
Jinx.
Was he gay?
He liked to dance a lot in Wizard of Oz.
Okay. I'm just surprised they added a gay subtext in the 60s. Like today, you have to add gay subtext to everything, and if you don't, then people are disappointed. But in the 60s, that's pretty daring, I think.
Well, no, because nowadays it's just blatantly out there in front of it. But back then it was like if you listened to like Paul Lynde or Charles Nelson Riley or any of those old guys like that, they snuck in those little gay subtexts that most of America didn't get, but anyone who, if you ever listen to some of his old bits from Hollywood Squares, Paul Lynde used to do a lot of little gay jabs that most people wouldn't get.
Yeah, I love Paul Lynde. Oh, I don't love Paul Lynde, but I love Paul Lynde.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, I love Paul Lynde in all ways. In 1963, Brooks was part of the animated short film The Critic. It was a satire of arty cinema and was conceived by Brooks and directed by Ernest Pintoff. Brooks supplied running commentary as a baffled moviegoer trying to make sense of the obscure things he was seeing on film. I would actually like to see this. The short film won the Academy Award for Animated Short Film that year. Then in 1965, Brooks teamed up with comedy writer Buck Henry to create a comedic TV show about a bumbling James Bond-like spy. Brooks says, "I was sick of looking at all those nice, sensible situation comedies. They were such distortions of life. I wanted to do a crazy, unreal comic strip kind of thing about something besides a family. No one had ever done a show about an idiot before. I decided to be the first." That show was Get Smart. It starred Don Adams as Maxwell Smart, Agent 86. The series ran from 1965 until 1970. Although Brooks was only involved with the pilot episode, Get Smart was highly rated and won 7 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Comedy Series in 1968 and 1969.
Now, I have a question. Now, the animated short film The Critic back in 1963, do you think that was a predecessor to the cartoon show on Fox back in the 90s with, who was the fat guy from Saturday Night Live?
Chris Farley?
No, short Jewish...
John Belushi?
John Lovitz.
John Lovitz.
He did a show for a couple of years on Fox called The Critic where I wonder if
Could be an homage.
I'm just curious. That would be interesting.
I don't know.
When you're done listening to this, here is something else you can sink your ear holes into.
Hi, I'm Mike from the Genuine Chit Chat podcast, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. I speak to a wide variety of guests, from travellers to musicians to those afflicted with mental or physical illnesses. There's really no subject that's off limits, from movies to politics and even controversial topics ranging from sex to drug reform and political correctness. So if you still believe in the art of conversation, are intrigued by healthy debates with different ideas and perspectives you may not have thought of, and want a podcast where every episode is about something different with a variety of guests, then this may be the podcast for you. You can hear us on YouTube and all your favourite podcast apps, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. So if you want to hang out and listen to honest conversations with interesting people, then come to Genuine Chit Chat, where I'm your host, Mike Burton.
Hey, it's Chris from Podcast 42. Ecosia users have planted 20 million trees, which is enough trees to circle the entire Earth. Do you know what 20 million trees does? It provides clean air for almost 3 million people. Do you know what else 20 million trees does? It offsets car pollution, it helps wildlife, it even creates jobs. How can you become an Ecosia user? Is it hard? Do you have to be in a tree to do this? It's really super easy. Just go to ecosia.co/podcast42. That's ecosia.co/podcast42. You search for stuff you're looking for using Ecosia search engine, like who was that guy in that movie, with the thing? What was his name? And then they take the ad money generated by your searches and plant trees where they're needed most. You don't even have to leave your chair, and a squirrel gets a new home, a kid gets a new tree house, a sidewalk gets some new shade, and the earth gets a breath of fresh air. It's free, and it's privacy friendly, meaning they're not collecting your data and selling it to everybody. It's time to heal and regenerate the world's forests. You're going to search the web anyway for dancing cat videos, so why not plant a tree while you're at it? The goal is 1 billion trees by 2020. Ecosia, ecosia.co/ Podcast 42.
This is Jack DeVos and Joe Jewett from the Over the Line show on iHeartRadio.
And you're listening to Podcast 42, winner of the J.D. Power Award for Best Light Pickup Truck 6 years in a row.
Now we're getting up to my favorite parts. Well, one of my favorite parts. For several years, Brooks had been tossing around the bizarre and unconventional idea about a musical comedy of Adolf Hitler.
Who is that?
Who is that? What Jew would recognize that name? The title Springtime for Hitler was first coined by Brooks as a joke during the press conference for All American in 1962. He decided to relate this title to a character named Leo Bloom, an homage to Leopold Bloom, protagonist of James Joyce's Ulysses. Close. It was reused by him years later once he developed his idea about two schnooks on Broadway who set out to produce a flop and swindle the backers. Brooks was inspired by some people he met during his early show business days. One was Benjamin Kutcher, a New York producer who financed his plays by sleeping with elderly women.
Ashton Kutcher's dad.
Ah.
I don't know if that's true.
Kutcher was the basis for Max Bialystock. The scheme itself had origins from two real theater producers who had a lavish lifestyle while making many unsuccessful plays. When imagining what play would have people packing up and leaving the theater even before the first act is over, Brooks decided that an Adolf Hitler musical would be perfect.
I think Chris was a little sneaky here because you notice that he had to put the words Kutcher, Bialystock, and Schnook in one section, and he had to give it to either the half-Jew or the Jew, not the guy from Ohio, the English guy, or the guy from Buffalo.
Well, see, The Producers is one of my favorite shows. I listen to that soundtrack frequently, so I know all about it.
It's my wife's, too, so I would have been able to get through this one, only because of her. And two real theater producers that he based it on was actually Adam Sandler's mom and dad.
Wow.
I don't know if that's a fact either.
So then why would you say it if you don't know if it's a fact or not? Fake news, Chris.
There's a disclaimer at the end of the show that this may not all be accurate.
At first it was going to be a novel, but publishers told him too much dialogue, not enough narrative. This should be a play, so he took it to Kermit Bloomgarden, who said, too many sets, make it a movie. Kermit Bloomgarden was responsible for Death of a Salesman, and Brooks wrote the script in 9 months. He was quoted in October 1966 interview with Playboy that he was working on a Springtime for Hitler, a play within a play, or a play within a film. I haven't decided yet. Brooks sought backers for his 30-page film treatment, but major film studios and independent filmmakers rejected Springtime for Hitler. I have no idea why.
No idea.
They thought the idea of using Hitler for comedy purposes was outrageousness and tasteless.
You know, we've done several shows.
That were outrageous and tasteless?
No, on many topics, and most of the best stuff that we have today was rejected by everybody. This seems to be a common theme.
Because everybody tends to go safe, and the people who think outside the box and actually are creative are the things that always seem to hit.
Yeah.
Some even stated that they would even consider the script if Brooks changed it to Springtime for Mussolini.
What?
Yeah.
Not nearly as funny.
Yeah, Italy's not known for their comedy.
It's a little funny.
Brooks's agent then arranged to have a meeting with a friend of his, New York producer Sidney Glazier. Glazier laughed so much at Brooks's reading of the script that he accepted the project by saying, "We're going to make it. I don't know how, but we're going to make this movie."
He probably only laughed at really Brooks reading it. Now, if somebody else read it, it probably wouldn't have got made. Glazier budgeted the film at $1 million and sought backers. Half the money came from philanthropists. You're
filling in for James.
I am. Half the money came from rich guy Louis Wolfson, who enjoyed the idea of laughing at the dictator, and the remainder. Plus distribution was arranged by Joseph E. Levine of Embassy Pictures. Levine's only condition was to change the title. Or is that Levine? Levine. He felt that many distributors would not carry a picture named Springtime for Hitler. Brooks decided to rename it The Producers. It is meant to be ironic, as in, these guys are anything but producers.
You know, it's funny you're talking about words that are interchangeable, like vowels. Vowels have two different sounds. So it could be Levine and it could be Levine.
Yes.
They are interchangeable.
And I'm the only non-Jew in the room, so you have to forgive me. My Yiddish is rusty and non.
Well, the half shits over there would know that if that every single name so far has been all Jewish, so it would be Levine. Levine's the Goyim version.
Did you just
of
call her a half Shih Tzu?
half Shiksa.
Oh, I think he was implying that you're very hairy. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, I'm
The
half
film-
Italian too, so it would apply.
Oh, there you go. The film, you're what again?
I'm a pizza bagel.
Half Jew, half Italian?
Yes, sir.
So half of her was born with guilt and half had to go to school to learn it.
The film company pondered over finding a director, but Brooks decided to take the task for himself. At the time, he had only directed one play. Levine. I was going to say Levine. I was just leading you down one road to take you back to the other road. That one guy was unsure of having an inexperienced director, but Brooks convinced him by saying, I wrote it, and I see it. I see the rooms. I see the people. I know how they act. I see the lights. I wrote it. I see it.
In 1968, Brooks received an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay for the film, beating out Stanley Kubrick. The producers became an underground hit, first on the nationwide college circuit, then in revivals, and also on home video. Brooks would later turn it into a musical, which became hugely successful on Broadway, receiving an unprecedented 12 Tony Awards. I saw it right before it closed on Broadway, and it's phenomenal. It's so good. One of my favorite parts is, they hire Ulla, who is their
Swedish secretary.
Their Swedish secretary, because she's a babe and everything. And they tell her, Ulla, clean up. And then you go to intermission, and then you come back, and their entire office is white. And they, look around, and they're like, Ulla, when did you find the time to paint the whole office? And she's like, intermission.
I only know it by the musical. I've never seen the other version
movie?
of it. I've never seen the Gene Wilder version at all.
Yeah, that's what you got to see. It was very good. But I think it's better as a musical.
And do you know who was in it with Gene Wilder?
Some fat guy.
Zero Mostel, who played Tevye, Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh.
But
another Jewish musical.
Another Jewish musical. This is my people. I'm home.
That's why you're here.
I don't think it made it into the script, but Mel Brooks actually had a tough time with the Fiddler on the Roof guy. He would not take direction.
Now, Zero Mostel was a serious actor.
What's he doing this for?
Well,
there's enough money.
Yeah, yes.
It's a Jewish cast.
Did you see
enough money.
And did you see it on Broadway with Matthew Barnes and Nathan Lane?
They did not come back for the final shows, but I have the musical soundtrack on my iPod, and I listen to it, and a lot of people give the movie version of the musical a lot of crap, but
it's pretty good.
I think it's fantastic. I thought everybody did a good job, and it's nice that they came back for the movie version of it. I thought that was very special to what the show was, is the two of them doing it together.
I know the beginning's good and the ending's good of the producer's
It's
movie.
all good.
I usually fall asleep in the middle.
You have to watch the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
But I just always find it funny when I'm watching it and I'm listening to it, because it's Timon and Simba. And that's the best part about it, with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick.
Oh, yeah, I forgot he's Simba.
That's right.
Yeah. No, I knew Nathan Lane is Timon.
Yeah, but he's adult Simba. That's I know.
They should have intertwined the two movies.
A lion feeling guilty about himself, about running away from his family and leaving his mother.
Timon and Simba.
And coming back only when he has the chance to be in charge.
Producing a play that's going to be a flop.
With the success of the producers, Glazer financed Brooks' next film in 1970, titled The 12 Chairs. It was loosely based on a Russian 1928 novel of the same name. It was about greedy materialism in post-revolutionary Russia. The film starred Ron Moody, Frank Langella, and Dom DeLuise as three men individually searching for a fortune in diamonds hidden in a set of 12 antique chairs. Brooks himself makes a cameo appearance as an alcoholic ex-serf who yearns for the regular beatings of yesteryear. The film was shot in Yugoslavia with a budget of $1.5 million. However, the film received poor reviews and was not financially successful. Brooks' next project was an adaptation of Oliver Goldsmith's She Stoops to Conquer, which was a play from the 18th century. He was unable to sell the idea to any studio and began to believe that his career was over. In 1972, Brooks met agent David Bengelman, who helped him set up a deal with Warner Brothers to hire Brooks, as well as Richard Pryor, Andrew Bergman, Norman Steinberg, and Al Uger, as the script doctor for an unproduced script titled Tex X. Brooks would become a director, and the script would be retitled Blazing Saddles. This would be Brooks's third film.
I may mess up the names of the known people,
The
but
who?
like the nobody knows people, like Levine.
Okay.
But I don't mess up the names of the famous people, like DeLuise and Pryor.
And Wilder.
Richard Pryor, huge famous.
Okay. Ron Moody, you probably don't know. He was. Did you ever see the musical Oliver?
I had to look him up.
He played Fagin in the musical Oliver.
And he was on a TV show, but I forget what it was.
I don't know the TV show.
Oh, Barney Miller.
Ron Moody?
Yeah, I think so.
No, Ron Moody on Barney Miller was a black guy, I think. This is a white, short Jewish guy.
No, I think it was on Barney Miller.
It could be. Frank Langella was the original Dracula.
Don't dismiss me.
And Dom DeLuise, you know Dom DeLuise.
Yeah, Burt Reynolds' friend.
Yeah, from all the Cannonball Run movies.
I love Cannonball.
And now we come to my favorite Mel Brooks movie. Blazing Saddles starred Cleavon Little, Gene Wilder, Harvey Korman, Slim Pickens, Madeline Kahn, Alex Kress, and Brooks himself, with cameos by Dom DeLuise and Count Basie.
Slim Pickens, really? His name?
Yeah.
What?
He was the Southern guy in tons of different cowboy movies.
Sure.
I think he was in Cannonball Run, too.
Yeah.
Not the second one, but the first one.
Yeah.
And maybe the second one.
Yeah.
He was in Cannonball Run also, I believe.
I think he's been in a lot of those movies in the 70s. He was like one of the guest stars on The Love Boat and Fantasy Island. He was everywhere after all the westerns went away. Mm-hmm. He had such a great voice. The idea for the film came from a story outline written by Andrew Bergman. Tex X was a play on Malcolm X's name. Originally, Alan Arkin was going to direct, and James Earl Jones was going to play the sheriff.
I can't see that.
No, but that fell apart. And Brooks loved the story, which he described as hip talk in 1974 speak, but happening in 1874 in the Old West. He purchased the film rights from Bergman, and though he had not worked with a writing team since Your Show of Shows, the group of writers expanded the outline. In the writing room, a large sign was posted that said, "Please do not write a polite script." Brooks referred to his writing process as chaotic. Blazing Saddles was more or less written in the middle of a drunken fistfight. There were 5 of us all yelling loudly for our ideas to be put into the movie. Not only was I the loudest, but luckily I also had the right as director to decide what was in or out.
Bergman remembers, in the beginning, we had 5 people. One guy left after a couple of weeks, then it was basically me, Mel, Richard Pryor, and Norman Steinberg. Richie left after the first draft, and then Norman, Mel, and I wrote the next 3 or 4 drafts. It was a riot. It was a rioter's room.
Huh.
Tex X as a title was rejected, as were Black Bart and Purple Sage. Purple Sage, was that referenced in that movie at all? I can't remember. It's been so long.
I have no idea where that would have come from.
Yeah, I was wondering. Brooks thought of the title Blazing Saddles while taking a shower. For the movie's title song, Brooks advertised in the trade papers for a Frankie Lane-type singer, and to his surprise, Lane himself offered his services. Brooks said, "Frankie sang his heart out, and we didn't have the heart to tell him it was a spoof. He never heard the whip cracks or the whip craps we put in later. We got so lucky with his serious interpretation of the song."
And he actually told that story when I saw him, and he was saying that, he was looking for someone to belt out this old traditional Western ballad. And Frankie Lane did them from a lot of the movies in the 50s and 60s. And when he did it, he came in and he thanked Mel Brooks for honoring the Westerns and everything, because he thought it was just going to be this serious Western movie. And Mel Brooks said, "I didn't have the heart to tell him what we were doing."
I wonder what his reaction was after he saw the movie.
Casting became problematic. Richard Pryor was Brooks's original choice to play Sheriff Bart, but the studio, claiming his history of drug arrests made him uninsurable, refused to approve financing.
That would have been even better of a movie, I think, if Richard Pryor.
No, I think Cleavon Little was perfect because he was smooth. Richard Pryor was not smooth. He was hilarious. But Cleavon Little, I don't see Richard Pryor in Gucci, with the smooth talking.
No, but Richard Pryor and Wilder had such a Such a chemistry. I don't know. I think it would have worked.
Well, yes. Cleveland Little was Pryor's approval. Cleveland Little, with Pryor's approval, was cast in the role instead. So Brooks offered the other leading role, the Wacko Kid, to John Wayne.
Waco Kid.
The Waco.
The Whack-Off Kid's a whole different movie.
Yeah, that's a porn spoof of this.
Oh, boy. Brooks offered the other leading role, the Waco Kid, to John Wayne, but he declined, deeming the film too blue for his family-oriented
Can you imagine Richard Pryor and John Wayne leading this movie? That is awesome.
Takes it a whole different direction. Wayne assured Brooks that he would be first one in line to see it. Then Gig Young was cast, but he collapsed during his first scene from what was later determined to be alcohol withdrawal syndrome. Gig Young was a recovering alcoholic, so Gene Wilder was flown in to replace him. Johnny Carson turned down the Hedley Lamar, which went to Harvey Korman. During Madeline Kahn's audition, Mel Brooks asked to see her legs, to which Kahn objected and said, "So is that kind of audition?" Brooks then explained that he was a happily married man and he needed someone who could straddle a chair with her legs, like Marlene Dietrich in Dead Sea Rides Again. Kahn lifted her skirt and said, "No touching."
So to expound on that Gig Young story, the way he told it is, they wanted to get a serious Western guy like to play the part, and they got Gig Young, and his assistant producer went up to him and said, "It's okay. His problems are behind him." And Mel Brooks was like, "What?" And the first scene they filmed was the one where they're in the jail and he wakes up and he's hanging upside down and he goes, "Are we awake?" And the Waco Kid's supposed to say, "I don't know. Are we black?" And basically the way that went was, "Are you awake? Are you?" And puked all over the set. Mm-hmm. And Mel Brooks had no idea what he said. "We can't use this guy. What are we going to do?" And he called up Gene Wilder and said, who he was friends with, and said,
"Yeah, producers.
What am I?" He goes, "What am I going to do? I can't use this guy." And Gene Wilder looked at him and said, "I'll be on the plane. I'll be there tomorrow morning." And the rest was history.
Yeah. He said that in the documentary I watched. I mean, that's got to be scary when your leading guy
pukes on the first day of filming.
Yeah, they had to take him to the hospital.
So Brooks had numerous conflicts over content with Warner Brothers executives, including frequent use of the N-word, Lily von Strupp's seduction scene, the amount of flatulence around the campfire, and then Mongo punching out a horse. Brooks, whose contract gave him final say, said he would make the changes, but actually did not make any changes, with the exception of cutting out Bart's final line during Lily's seduction, "I hate to disappoint you, ma'am, but you're sucking my arm."
Yeah, in the documentary, the executive's going, "Okay, you need to cut that." And he was like, "Okay, I'm going to cut that." "All right, now you need to cut that." He would tell the executives, "Okay, that's out of the script. No, don't worry about it." "All right, and finally you need to cut that." "Okay, no punching of horses. Don't worry, it's out of the script." And then it all stayed in.
When asked about the many N-word references, Brooks said he received support from Richard Pryor and Cleavon Little. In 2012, Brooks stated, "If they did a remake of Blazing Saddles today, they would leave out the N-word, and then you've got no movie." Brooks also said he received many letters of complaint after the film's release, but most of them were from white people.
There's no way they could remake this movie.
No, not today.
No, not at all.
Correct.
Oh my God, people would lose their ever-loving minds.
Lose their minds.
Jalen and I were talking about that one time. We said we should do a list sometime of movies that they could not make today. And this was on the top of the list.
That's actually a good idea.
Wow. Let's do it. Let's post it in the group. Let's have people say what they think movies could not be made today.
All right, well, done.
I'm
doing it right now.
No, I'm doing it right now.
That's the sound my phone makes when you text me.
Is it?
You still have dial-up on your phone, huh?
Time to rate the beer.
Rate the beer. Oh, boy.
This is going to be two parts.
This is the intermission part.
Oh, my gosh.
This is where Lily von Strupp paints the room, or whoever.
No!
That's the wrong movie.
Vincent Janssen Swanson. That's her first name. Do you want to hear her last name?
Can you do it?
No, because she never says it. They said they don't have the time. We'll just call you Ula.
Okay, so for the
she's never seen Blazing Saddles.
For the rest of the podcast,
producers.
Nicole's going to reenact the producers, starting from scene one. Ready, go. In comes Nathan Lane.
Gosh, I haven't seen it in so
Hakuna
long.
Matata! What a wonderful phrase!
Hakuna Matata.
All right, what's this beer again?
This is McSwagger's Own. Amber Ale from Crooked Can Brewery in Winter Garden. It says atop the top, "Where's my mouth?" Which I don't understand. But
I don't know. And it's not in a crooked can. We've already established that. I will give the label a 5. I like it a lot.
It is a nice
label. It's the same character on all their different labels. They have the sort of the turn of the century guy on all the different labels.
Okay. Well, I did not like this beer at first.
Mm-hmm.
It's grown on me.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much.
It's a little bit hoppier than you normally would like.
I'm getting better with my hops.
Yeah.
My hops are my people now. My people are my hops.
Your hop peeps.
I'm gonna give it a 3, which I think if we did this beer like episode 2 or 3, I would have given it a 1.
Okay.
Maybe a 0.
See,
but at least it's
grown.
At least, hey, last one I brought, you gave me a 5/16, so I'll take a 1 or 2 or 3.
5/16.
No, I think I think 3 for me is really good. Yeah. That's a good rating for me.
I like it. I'm gonna give it. You know what? It doesn't really taste like an ale to me.
No, not at all.
Just because of all the hops. But I really like the flavor. I think it's not a terrible aftertaste either. Like, it actually settles pretty well. I'll give it a 6.
It threw me off.
I like this beer.
It's not an ale.
I like Crooked Can. So I get this beer when I'm there. So it's a very good option. Yeah, 6. For me.
See, I like it. It's as a 6.0, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a little bit of a kick to it.
Get the most for your money.
Sorry. Jewish joke.
Oh, okay.
No?
All right, tell it again.
Well,
I want to feel included.
It's high alcohol percentage, so you're getting the most for your money.
Hakuna Matata.
No worries.
I will give it a 5. I do like it. It's got for a red ale. It's got a little bit more hoppier than I would.
It's a red ale.
It just says amber. No, it's amber ale.
But it's similar, like to a Killian's or anything.
It does taste like a red.
Yeah.
If only I poured it out, so look at the color this time.
But it's a good beer. I do like their things. I'd give it a 5. It's not my favorite of theirs, but it's definitely good.
The can is shiny.
It is. And lots of colors. Very turn of the century.
It's not really lots of colors. It's silver, red,
and black.
All right.
With a little blue for the American flag.
So how about it pops? How about that?
Pop.
Yes. Poppy. Pop. Well, let's open up the email.
Oh, yeah. We got some emails. Let's see. I'm hiding them over here underneath my laptop.
Oh, that's a good place for the emails.
It is a good place. Okay. We got an email from Doreen saying, "Derpy for president." For those of you who might not have heard our episode, which one was that?
I don't know.
A while ago.
Florida Hates Licorice, I think.
Florida Hates Licorice. That's what it was.
I think.
Because we were because we were telling jokes. Derpy was a joke about how if Goofy was named today, he wouldn't be Goofy, he would be Derpy. And that just about broke Chris when we told that joke. So somebody obviously wants Derpy for president.
It was in Reddit's shower thoughts.
That's touche.
Do we not already have Derpy for president?
And then Mike emailed us asking, "Did Nicole ever finish the South Park game?" No, I did not, because I did not play it. But I'll tell you, living with James, it took him so long to finish that game. And he said the ending sets it up for a sequel. So look for another South Park video game to be coming out eventually. I did not finish that game.
Which to that, I have to say, my daughter and I were actually listening to that episode just a couple days ago.
Oh yeah?
And she had feedback for you.
Okay.
What?
She said that you guys should set up a webcam.
Yeah.
When you're doing that, and just webcam and simultaneous Nicole trying to play a video game.
Well, we talking about doing that, especially with Battlefront, because they've got like a whole Battlefront game group going on, and I have no idea how to play any of those types of games. So they were talking about just how much fun it would be to have me play that so they could all make fun of me. And that just sounds so much fun for me, let me tell you.
Well, my 15-year-old daughter was doing that yesterday, too. She goes, "Does Nicole not play games? Does she not get..."
No. She does puzzles.
My daughter doesn't even have an Xbox, and she says, "Come on, Nicole, hit the X. Hit the X."
And I have to look down at the remote. I'm like, which one is X? I don't know.
It's
really
the letter that...
No, I know what letter is X.
But
I can't not look at the remote and know which button is X. Like, I have to look.
That's the have to. She doesn't know what the cross.
We need to do a Twitch streaming of Nicole playing video games.
There's
You get
so
paid
many.
on Twitch, so we might make a lot of money.
I'm
You might like to be made fun of. It might be worth it.
One from the back showing what she's looking at. One on the face with the faces she makes when she's trying to play a video
Okay, but
game.
my negotiation for that is I get 75% of the profit, and the rest of you split the remaining 25. Because if I'm going to be getting made fun of, I better profit from it.
Oh, well, we have a sponsor coming up in episodes. Are you going to take a cut in that?
Yes, because they plant trees, from what I've heard.
I mean, are you going to take a less cut?
No,
than the
I will
rest
take
of
an
us?
I will take an equal cut. But I'm saying if it's gonna be at my expense, I want a bigger cut.
All right. Well, you'll get it's 25% each. We'll give you 26%, and we'll give JL 24%.
Fair. That sounds fair.
Well, JL can't do math anyway, so he probably won't. You'll say, no,
Okay.
I'm really good
JL,
at
we're
math.
not going to give you 25. We're going to give you 24. Okay, good. All right, sounds good.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
We're giving you a bargain. We're going to give you 24. Okay, good.
He'll be happy. He likes money. He likes shiny things. He'll be happy. We could pay him in beer.
Yes, we could.
We'll
He'll
give
never
him,
know.
We'll
He'll
give him
never know.
20% and like a 6-pack.
Sounds good.
Like a cheap 6-pack.
And then if you
Well,
want to give him a
whatever that
bonus,
5% can buy us, apparently.
Well, I want to make a profit on the 5%.
Okay, then never mind.
and you could get him comic book bags. That would be his bonus.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
So many ideas. We're going to have to write this
Of course,
down.
all you'd have to do is go buy some Glad Ziploc bags. Yeah, no, these are comic book bags. They're really good.
No, he'll know the difference.
Yeah.
Where do you find us?
Spreaker. Listen to us on Spreaker.
Yes, please.
I mean, you could find us anywhere you find podcasts, really, including iHeartRadio and Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, but definitely Spreaker. Because,
whatever it's called, whatever Apple's calling themselves now.
Yeah, but like we make money off Spreaker, so we'd appreciate it if you download that app and listen to us there. That's where I started listening to us.
See, we don't ask you to donate to our Patreon.
No.
We ask you to do the easy one. Listen to us on Spreaker.
Which is a free app.
Yeah, it's
And
everything's
there's no
free.
subscription, but then we benefit from it.
Yes, and you don't have to send us $1 and we send you a sticker.
Yeah. Hey, we also have a Facebook group. It's the official Podcast 42 show group page.
Something like that.
On Facebook, and it will ask you to join, and it will ask you how you heard about us, and we will let you in. Like, we're really easy like that. It's just a
But
silly...
you have to be able to pronounce the name Levine.
Well, or Levine. I mean, we'll take either answer.
Currently, the Facebook group has over 75 million members.
Yeah,
and growing strong.
We did grow a lot this week. James was watching it intently, and we definitely we gained like 70 viewers this week.
That's his new hobby.
It
Is to watch
his
that
new
page
hobby.
grow.
Look, another one.
He's going to be disappointed when it plateaus. And if you want to email us at podcast42show@gmail.com.
42 numerically. That's why we say it 42 show. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to come back and do Mel Brooks Part 2.
Super.
Well, I've never gotten a sticker. When did we get stickers? No one told me about stickers.
No one's donated to the Patreon yet, so nobody's got a sticker.
Gary, you have to spend money to get a sticker is what we're saying.
That's right.
Well, since I will not be here for Part 2 on Mel Brooks.
No, you will be here for Part 2.
Oh, I will be?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You're coming back whether you like it or not.
Oh, okay. All right.
As we peel back the fourth wall here, we're going to record it right now.
Oh, okay.
This isn't some trick.
Oh.
We hit stop, and then we hit record again.
So I don't have to come back another week.
We're doing it right now.
I mean, you can come back another week if you want, but we're going to record this right now.
Okay, that'll be good because I have a Blazing Saddles story.
All right. Bye.
Stay tuned.
What? Oh, we're not our names? No?
Oh, yeah, we should.
Yeah, well, I'm Nicole Fasone.
I'm Gary Juboy Winograd.
And I'm Christopher DeVos.
We'll talk to you soon.
Now I get to say bye.
Bye.
Bye. Shalom.
You are no longer listening to Podcast 42.
Some of the stuff you just heard might have been embellished, made up, or just plain incorrect. In other words, don't use this show to write a book report with. You will get a bad grade. Just like all the hosts.
But I'm not done yet!
JL's Beer Cooler is written and performed by Cremo. Cremo is an award-winning actor and musician. For all things Cremo, including more great music, visit Cremo.com. That's spelled Craymo. He is on Twitter at Cremo. Facebook, just search Cremo Music, and also on YouTube under, you guessed it, Cremo.